But I would say within each of the industries, smaller, more agile companies in some ways might be more likely to embrace AI. But we also see very big companies, huge companies, Unilever, L'Oreal, embracing AI, but in their own way. So we know, for example, with Perfect Corp, our friends, one of their biggest competitors is L'Oreal and what they're doing in beauty with their own AR filters and also what they're doing with AI. And we see the same thing with the other companies with whom Perfect Corp works, for example, Coty and so on.
Hello, I'm Mike Ryan. I'm the Chief Networking Officer at PIMS, and welcome to our second season of Minutes with Mike. Now in my 33rd year at PIMS, I've had the privilege of partnering with companies both large and small, supporting their PR and marketing through customized fulfillment and distribution that delivers measurable impact on their brand perception, boosts positive affinity, and fuels their overall brand performance. And throughout my career, I've had the chance to work alongside many talented folks. This is their story. On this show, we'll sit down with some of the world's top marketing and business thought leaders to learn more about their success, how they got there, how marketing helped them achieve their goals, what strategies they used, and what inspires them. Please join me on this journey as we learn from those who are changing the way we think about business. So sit back, enjoy. You're listening to Minutes with Mike. Welcome, everybody, to Minutes with Mike. Today's guest, we're very excited to have Daniella McNulty. Daniella is an entrepreneur, consultant, CMO, artist, professor, public speaker. She does it all. But first time I ever met her, the first time I ever saw her was I was introduced to her through Perfect Corp, right? We were going to be doing this panel discussion on Gen AI, and they told me a little bit about her. I had not heard of her. So, of course, I did a little research on my end and saw that she has this wonderful and fantastic background, which we're going to talk a lot about today. But I thought that at first, like the discussion that we were having, that panel discussion, I was nervous. I was worried about how I was going to come off. I'm certainly always worried about how I'm going to look. And I'm also worried about like what I'm going to be saying. But I thought you were so wonderful in the lead up, right? You had reached out to everybody to sort of connect with them and make sure everybody was comfortable on what you were going to be saying, how you were going to be saying it. But that day too, specifically, and what happened that day, and this is what in my brain was like, I have to get this woman on my podcast, was you made everybody feel so comfortable backstage that leading up there was just sort of an extension of the conversation we were already having backstage. So kudos to you and thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. No, I loved it. It was actually, it was very interesting. I've done a few conferences before. I've moderated a few things before, but not like that. And so if anything, I wanted you guys to feel comfortable because I wanted to feel comfortable. I wanted it to be like, yeah, it was an extension of what we were already chatting about backstage. And I had the same sort of really nice feedback also from the others on the panel. And I had a really good time as well. So thank you so much.
I think it went really well. I opened the show and told everybody about the many hats that you wear. Tell us a little bit about you. Where did you get started? How did you get into the world you're in right now? How does your world unfold? Where did it all start?
I think I would say it started 15 years ago. First started when I was working at Heineken and then L'Oreal for quite a few years. So both of them in marketing, always working in brand marketing or innovation. Those were my first two jobs. And it wasn't really until like my 6th or 7th year really working in marketing that I felt like, okay, I'm ready to be much more senior. So then I became CMO of Mashver Group, which is a hotel company based in Paris. And they have bars and restaurants and so on. And I was there for about 5 years, actually really focusing on creating new concepts. So launching new restaurants, rebranding everything. We changed all the websites. We modernized everything. We changed all the tech. We recruited a marketing team. We went through COVID together. That was a thing. That was a very big thing that we had to do. And after these 5 years, I then actually decided I really want to go freelance. I'd like to be my own agency. And that was, I think, the moment where I realized that there was a lot of potential to be helping brands and actually doing what I was doing in-house, but really doing it for individuals who wanted to launch companies or brands that were going to also help other people. So indirectly, I was also helping a lot of other people from different networks that I wouldn't normally have access to myself. So that was like 3 years ago. And then the teaching was that came out of nowhere. It was basically a PhD professor who actually invited me to start teaching 2 years ago, which was really, really nice. And since then, I'm also teaching in Switzerland. I'm teaching in the UK as well. So not just in France. I'm based in Paris. It's been beautiful. Like it's helped me a lot with public speaking. It's helped me a lot with my own consulting work. And then on top of that, my third like hat, in French they say casquette. So my third casquette is artist. So I've been exhibiting, been doing lots of art events as well. And it's been a beautiful 2024. I'm very happy.
I think I read on your LinkedIn profile, because of course I do all sorts of research, right? I think I read on your profile that you're bilingual, but when I say bilingual, I'm talking about English and French. And did I see Chinese as well on there and Spanish?
Spanish is Spanish. We're going to say it's like this for now, but Taiwanese is my mother tongue. So my mum is Taiwanese, speak Chinese at home.
That's wonderful. Tell me about that then. As a youngster growing up, what did you want to be? What did you envision your world was going to be? You were probably like me when we were younger. We didn't know exactly what public relations and marketing, that we didn't know what that meant, but we knew that we don't have a problem speaking aloud or speaking to a group or well, tell me about that. Like growing up, what did you aspire to be? What direction was your family sort of pointing you towards? What steps did you take in there?
That is a really funny question. So I have a very traditional Taiwanese family, and they enjoy when we are doctors or lawyers and engineers, that sort of thing. I studied philosophy and psychology and was very much into art. I had the grades to actually go and do the other more serious subjects, but I wanted to do something more creative. And in the end, I found marketing was the bridge between these creative subjects and business, making money and doing more strategic sort of roles. So I think, yeah, it really is the bridge between the two worlds in some ways. It's sort of bridging between art and science for me. I think a lot of the marketing work that we do with my clients today, all like clients like L'Oreal and so on, is still very analytical, still very much based on science before we start creating our insights, going into the innovations and so on. And then we go into the creativity and the artistic aspect, which is really nice as well. So it really is that. I would say that was the beginning. But today and for the next few years, what I'd really like to do, and we have some really exciting projects coming up next year, especially in arts, the creation of a few new art fairs in Paris, and also the extension of certain art concepts that we've been doing in Paris overseas, in New York, and also in London. And I think there'll be a lot of science and I would even say engineering behind that. So it's going to be a really interesting bridge between all the subjects that have been in discussion with my family since I was small. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen next. It brings together a lot of these concepts, so it's good.
So I was having a conversation with two sisters and having a conversation just this last weekend about our children and this next generation and the exposure they're getting on the internet and the exposure they're getting to what could be, right? They're all sort of college age or a little bit older, and they're kind of just feeling out where they want to be and where they want to go. Talk to me a little bit about your role on that level, right? Like, so you're obviously teaching, you're using your experience in this world to educate the youth and the next generation, but you also have to wear the hat of, mentor, right? They're looking to you as, I want to be as successful as she is. I want people to listen to me like they look and listen to her. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what struggles do you have in dealing with that, or what are some really, favorable things that have happened along the way on that end of things that really sort of make you look forward to going there to the next day, the next class, and the next class?
I will tell you, when I first started, I was terrified. I really, really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't sleep the night before, and it's very rare for me not to sleep. I can fall asleep standing up. So for me not to sleep was insane. Like I was terrified. And when I walked into that classroom for the first time 2 years ago, I felt the judgment. So on top of that, I'm in Paris where everyone's very judgmental. I felt the judgment. I felt like, oh my gosh, I feel like full on imposter syndrome and so on. By the end of the class, when I realized that I really wanted to share my experience with them. I wanted them to not have to go through and make the mistakes that I made, and to somehow give them some sort of shortcut to get straight into a company like L'Oreal or to launch their own company and to just obviously still make mistakes in their own way, but maybe avoid making the ones that I already made so they could just go a little faster. My way of teaching is very different, I think, to the traditional way of teaching in that I will always, for every single class, and I have like 10 classes per school, I teach in 5 schools, I'll let you do the calculation. For every single one of my classes, I will always get a friend from a brand, maybe like L'Oreal, LVMH, Pernod Ricard, Heineken. I'll always get them to work with us on a case study. So the students are really working on something for a company, something that they will then present to the company or individual at the end. And it gives them more stress. And they're always saying, Madame, this is so stressful. But then by the end, they're really working so hard on making a real presentation. And I'm not lying when I tell them that if you do really well with your presentation, you will get recruited. They are looking for interns. That is the purpose of this case study. So it's a matchmaking process. And I think if anything, I try and minimize the amount of time I'm talking because I can give them examples. I can teach them obviously the basics of what they want to know for the subject, but I want to see them act it out. I want to see them execute it. I want to see them actually put this into practice. And the best way of doing that is not in front of even me. It's in front of a brand. It's in front of someone who's launching a company. And when they get these other points of view, it goes beyond the depth of the actual pedagogical process, it goes beyond just learning something from me. It becomes this practical experience with a person from the outside, maybe from the head of the school that comes in as well. And there have been difficult moments. There have been moments where I've had classes that won't stop talking. And I don't want to shout at them because when I hear teachers shouting in the corridors, I'm like, I wouldn't react to that. So I don't see why I do that. So I just sort of go into a silence and I just sit there smiling because they've all paid for their masters. And at the end of the day, if you don't, I'm not losing anything. I'm getting paid. So I will sit there and I'll just smile and wait. And actually what ends up happening in these situations is, so the majority of the class wants to learn. The other students will actually shush the noisy students. They end up being my sort of, how do I say this, my team, my support. And they end up being the brand ambassadors of the entire experience. They end up shushing people. I don't have to shush. I just sit and wait. So I think that's the worst I've really had. I've had a few students who've told me, Madame, we don't really fit in with the class. Can you choose a group for us? And I'm like, this is part of life. This is a life experience, which I think is going to help you a lot. Why don't I come with you? I'll come with you. Pick the group that you'd like to join. I'll come with you. I'll support you, but I want you to make that conversation yourself. But I'm very happy to be with you. And in some ways, I genuinely feel today, Mike, that I have like 500 children and I love them all. Some of them are really, really smart. Some of them really aren't, but they all really want to be there now because we're all having a good time. I think that's the main thing. I want to have the same experience also with my art galleries and also with my clients, my 3 activities. It really is to have a good time. And it really is that by the end of the experience, we've come out of it feeling better than when we went into it in some way. So teaching, yeah, it's not just like me going blah, blah. It really is. I'm learning so much from them as well. So much, especially about social media. Gen Z is very good at this. So I learn a lot from them as well.
That's a great segue. I was going to jump right into that and ask you about that. From my experience on the outside looking in, right, it must be very difficult for you back in the day when I was in high school and college. The expectations were, lower, right? I hate to say they were lower, but the way that things were done was different, right? You had much more time to gather information and data. The expectations of what you presented, right? There was no such thing as PowerPoint. There was no such thing as ChatGPT. It was a slower world. Now, it must be very difficult in teaching that because, this generation is all about information. They want data. They want results, right? They want to get their information immediately. So that ties into what I was going to ask you about next in this artificial intelligent world of ours that I was going to say moving into, but we're already there, right? And again, that's how you and I sort of, our worlds collided is we have experience working with clients, and in that case, Perfect Corp doing their artificial intelligence. Tell me about, how that intersects with the students, but more so with the clients, right? What are their expectations when using AI as sort of that next level of thinking? What do you find that the clients are looking for, how it ties to AI, whether it's, driven by data or just for new ideas and new experience? Tell me a little bit about how that plays into things.
AI is definitely something which is in all 3 of my activities for different reasons. But if we focus just on client side for now, we can talk about AI in teaching and also in art afterwards. But just with my clients, I'll give you an example. So actually, we used quite a lot of AI in one of the projects we recently did with L'Oreal. We were redesigning one of the bottles for one of the brands. So not L'Oreal Paris itself, but another brand, because I don't want everything to be with AI, obviously. So what I did was I actually hand drew all my propositions at the beginning. And then we actually fed them into Midjourney, fed them into ChatGPT 5, fed them into the other AIs. And we plugged that in, gave a prompt, a very specific prompt, and we allowed the AI to basically give us all the iterations, which we then re-downloaded and then continued drawing. So that's one of the ways that we've actually used AI recently with big companies like L'Oreal. Another way that we've used with a much smaller company, the creation of a brand this time, a phone application, which is going to be in the literature world. And what we've been using is, again, hand-drawn. So again, I'm just talking about creativity for now. Hand-drawn logos and then feeding it in to create iterations with the AI and then see what the client thinks. And then we animate them afterwards separately. On a more like quantitative basis, I think the kind of AI that we've been using a lot is kind of like, market data crunching, Power BI, seeing how we can actually go further with what we already have. Another contact that we actually have, how I know Perfect Corp, is through SoPost. So SoPost in 2022, this was actually with one of my clients from 2023, Aptar Group. With Aptar, the AI that we were using was very much within the more like analytical market analysis, market understanding. So this was with like Mintel, Euromonitor, Nielsen, these sorts of platforms. And I think the bigger the data, which is what's happening, the bigger the data today, the more we actually need the help of AI to actually get straight to the point in the smartest way possible. Sometimes it's still really random. It's just, it's making up entire studies that just don't exist. So you do have to double check when you're doing that. And a quick tie-in with my students who love using AI as well. So I encourage my students to use AI when they're doing visuals because they're not graphic designers, and I want them to be able to make their marketing presentation go all the way to the end. The link between the two of these and why I'm talking about some of my students is that with my clients, we sometimes work with my students. We actually get them on board. And so there's a link between the two of these. And they love having all the propositions, the brands, because whatever the AI visual is, it might be an amazing AI like Chanel boutique. Even if it's AI generated, they then give that to the in-house Chanel graphic designer, and then they can actually create something themselves. So it's their own content afterwards, but it's inspired by what we've been working on with the students. Then I had a final point. This is more in the art world, but this is technically still clients because we're going to be working on creating some art fairs, as I mentioned. So the actual scenography, the actual creation, the visuals and the architecture, the interior design of what we're going to be doing for two of the biggest spaces, the architect in question, he hand draws everything just like me. But then we will probably use AI at some point to actually create the visuals, to include the people, basically what we were doing before with, SketchUp or 3D modeling. But now with AI, we can actually texturize everything perfectly. We can get the trees in there almost immediately. It's a lot less time consuming. Yeah, I think those are the four main areas. It's more creative, I'd say, than quantitative, but there's a lot of applications that we could use. Applications that I imagine using AI for next year would be generating maybe tone of voice for some of my clients who want to redesign their branding. And I think what could also be really interesting is sentiment analysis, which we're going to be doing a lot of on marketing, to actually go through how people have been reacting to what he's done so far, and then maybe come up with a new way, see what the AI suggests that we do as a recommendation based on that. So those are some of the applications that I can give you as an example today.
You have a very unique perspective that comes from the ability for you to sort of look at these different verticals, right? Because you've had your hand in certainly beauty, you've had your hand in fashion, and you've also had your hand in music and different applications as such. So, would you say the strategies are similar when talking to clients in different verticals when it comes to AI, or would you say they're very much so differentiators from one another? Like, would you go in a different direction based on a music company, and you're a head of marketing at Bolero, but like your perception of the direction or the speed in which you move in those verticals be different depending on the different verticals or the companies, larger companies versus
Definitely.
smaller companies?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's in terms of industry, although there are certain industries which are embracing AI more than others because there's less fear. For example, in music, it depends what you're going to do with the AI, but to what extent are you replacing the artist or to what extent are you boosting the artist? That makes a difference. Same thing within art. It's the same thing as well. So there are many who embrace it. There are many who don't embrace it. It depends what you do with it, really. But I would say within each of the industries, smaller, more agile companies in some ways might be more likely to embrace AI. But we also see very big companies, huge companies, Unilever, L'Oreal, embracing AI, but in their own way. So we know, for example, with Perfect Corp, our friends, that one of their biggest competitors is L'Oreal and what they're doing in beauty with their own AR filters and also what they're doing with AI. And we see the same thing with the other companies with whom Perfect Corp works, for example, Coty and so on. So I think it depends on the project. Now, I'm technically not answering your question, but it's hard for me to answer that question because I've seen exceptions to the case. For example, I could say that smaller companies tend to be more agile, but that's not necessarily the case. When we were working with Bolero, for example, I was in direct contact with the artists and we wanted to get them on board within the world of Web3 and blockchain, which 3 years ago was very much still a thing. It is still a thing. It is still a thing. It's just, I think it's having a bit of a dip these last few years because of the doubts. Again, recently this week, there's been a crash with an NFT launch and so on without naming names. So I think it is relevant to keep in mind that it's a new technology, like many innovation, like the beginning of the internet. It took a very long time for that to be adopted, but once it was adopted, it was adopted. Same thing with smartphones. That took a long time. Lots of people saying smartphones will cause cancer. To be fair, like many things they probably do, but now we all have a smartphone. So it's the adoption time that's going to take a bit of time. So let's see what happens with NFTs. But within music, we had a lot of artists who would come in and be like, I don't want to be replaced by AI. What I want to do is augment or boost what I'm already doing now. In some ways, I think two of the applications which I've seen within artists' usage of AI, which have been really interesting, have been one key one, which is within art and design, like architecture and design, where artists have trained the AI to actually create in their style, in their signature. And therefore, the AI really becomes an extension of their own hand. So I've seen that a lot within architecture in Paris with friends who are in interior design. So they use a lot of, for example, AI to create the motifs, the designs on tapestries, on cushions, on curtains, and so on. So these are actually recreated using an AI based on their own signature. Another application which I've seen, which has been really exciting, again, more on like the quantitative side of things, is when you have a certain monthly report that you need to do over and over again. For example, you're specifically within skincare, specifically within hygiene, specifically within showers, specifically within liquid shower gels. I don't know. And you need that to just be like updated every single month. And you also want to be highlighted on any new launches that have been within that really niche market, specifically maybe within solids in hygiene. So you're basically Lush Cosmetics, or you are other bath like bombs, that sort of thing. So something really specific. You can then use the AI to really generate these reports for you in a very smart way, updating it like regularly. You have literally nothing to do. Back in the day at L'Oreal, these reports would take us weeks and weeks. So there are lots of really exciting applications, I think, today. I'm really for AI. So yeah.
That's really good insight. The data, as you mentioned, is what drives this, sort of perspective on AI. And sometimes the algorithms that are built are only as good as the data that's fed to it, right? So give me your opinion on, how that data is obtained, right? There are people in our world that are all about organic, create their own information that they're going to feed into it based on their own experience, based on their own specific needs. And then there is the whole other side of our world that ties in with like a creator IQ or a Nielsen IQ, that they create these ongoing connections with these companies that feed them information and data so that they can feed this information back to their brands or whatever their specific needs may be. Tell me what your thoughts are on sort of obtaining that information, whether it's organically or through partnerships with different vendors that service that market. How do you feel about that?
It's interesting. It depends if we're talking about a brand or an individual, because there's also, branded individuals. I work with influencers, I work with content creators, and I'm also working with people who are becoming brands. So there's a whole sort of, to answer your question, I think I almost have to really think about the different types of data which we're all crunching today. I see this also myself within art because I want to transform my own presence online into something else. It's quite confusing. I think we have access to so much data now. We also have access to these amazing platforms like Power BI, like Nielsen, and so on, that can really generate these insanely detailed reports. At the end of the day, what are we going to do with those reports? And are we going to be responsible? And do we have the right intention? I think we can all get access to this data in a very exciting way. It can be almost instantaneous, which means we have a lot of extra time to be doing something else. We're no longer doing what we used to do, which would be, spending a lot of time making these reports, minutiously going through each column, making sure it's okay and there's no errors. We can still do that if we want to double check. But what we do have today, I think, is a little bit of extra time to focus on something else. So be that creating extra compelling content, be that refocusing on our SEO, be that making sure that there's always a percentage of our revenue going to some sort of charity, but really focusing our time on other things as well. So I think it creates extra time, which is really nice. That's the first thing. And then after that, I would say, and this is something I've learned from my students, in addition to needing extra time, peace of mind. So we speak often, clients and I, and also my content creator friends and so on, trying to target Gen Z, trying to target Gen Alpha, trying to target these very anxious generations who today feel like they don't have any time. Even though when we look at their lives from the outside, we can't help but be like, you don't have children. What is taking up your time? But it's not that. It's because they feel like they're full to the brim with information, full to the brim with things all the time, always happening. How do they choose? And I don't know if you've had this before, I'm sure you have, but when we have too much choice, sometimes we can't make a decision. We're just like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna stay at home. I'm not going to any of these events. And I feel like sometimes when we're talking to Gen Z, actually, you know what? It's everyone. It's millennials, baby boomers. It is Gen X. It is everyone. Today, we have access to so much data and so much everything. We need to create that space by thanking AI as well, by taking the time out of this report creation, by creating a bit of space to then sort of take a step back, recenter and be like, okay, what am I doing this for? What's the good that I can bring into the world today and tomorrow? Thanks to this tech, thanks to this extra space I've created. And basically, yeah, I think it can go hand in hand with mindfulness. It can go hand in hand with a certain calmer way of working as well. And like a 4-day week, which I think we all should promote, or just a little bit of, remote working every now and then. So
There you
yeah.
go. There you go. On the PIMS end of things, we're influencer marketing, right? And things are ever changing in that world. But oftentimes we're asked about how does all this help your exposure? Like, what are you doing in this AI world? What's changing on your end, right? Because if you think warehousing, if you think things logistic wise can't be changed, or it takes really a long time, I'm here to tell you too that our world changes too, whether it's shrinking the footprint of storage that people are always looking for to, they want to pay less in storage, they want to pay less in warehousing. AI ties in to help shrink that footprint to maximize the most out of storage, or, the personalization. You said it, this generation, certainly, or they want everything to be uber personalized. When I first started at PIMS, personalization meant like, you get a blue one and I get a green one, and that's it. Right now, everything's shade matched. Everything is, specific to where you live and how you do things, and whether you are a morning person or a night person. Like, there is so much customization that goes on. AI is only going to complement that in such a way it's going to speed things up. So it's a really good trend that we sort of are rolling with. But tell me about what you think. What's the next thing you see coming down the pike, as far as, it doesn't even have to be technology, but what are you hearing a lot about on the street about the way things are going?
Health and wellness, psychological well-being, dealing with anxiety, supporting each other, creating safe spaces. This has been coming at me from every direction. This is all three of the casquette, all three of my activities. Within client work, it's the next step of sustainability. It's the next step of CSR. Companies are banging on about it, but they now really have to prove with certifications and accolades and, prizes, they have to prove that they're sustainable. But beyond that, they also have to be sustainable to themselves, to their employees. So there's been this really important shift towards mental well-being, mental health. So that's really important. I wouldn't say that's a trend, though. I really think it's just we're heading into this maelstrom of madness with what is already, for me, World War III, but apparently we're still not referring to it like that. But we're in a situation, I think, where there's just like insane anxiety all over the shop. And then my students, and with all of the schools, there's a lot of calm and a lot of peace, or at least they're trying to install that. But I also feel like there's a lot of, they always seem to be too busy. They always seem to be, I'm always finding ways to test them within the class, so I don't have to give them homework because I know that they're also busy. And also I know that my vibe and the fact that I come in and whatever the stresses that they have, I'm always going to deal with it and find a solution together. I think they really appreciate that the good vibes is going to be there. It's a safe space when they come to my class. They are, therefore, they end up all coming, because there's no reason not to come, because I'm going to not only teach them something, it's going to be inspiring, we'll have a good time. And then in the art world, it's been really interesting. But the last few art fairs I've gone to, and the 2 or 3 the concepts that we're working on for next year, there is an aspect of really bringing mental well-being and meditation and breath work actually into the art experience, and very much doing these immersive, olfactive, visual, calming experiences within the art event itself. And this is not the first time. This is not the first time. This is something which I'm seeing a lot of. So I would say that is a big subject, which is going to be very relevant for 2025. And I think brands, companies, individuals, and agencies that can address this in a wholesome, genuine, authentic, heartfelt way will be very much standing out in front of the crowd, and really standing head over shoulders above the others, because authenticity is maybe what's lacking in advertising and marketing sometimes. But we see this a lot with the Super Bowl ads as well. The ones that really connect on an emotional level today are the ones that are really getting to us. If we look at Christmas ads, because, Christmas at the end of the day is a market. If we look at the way that Christmas ads work, those that really speak to us about, solitude within the older generations, or something with families or kids, the ones that really connect on an emotional level and really get to you, they're the ones that are working the best. So I would say it's really that, in addition to AI, in addition to technology and so on, but really recreating this link and recreating the closeness and the emotional connection that we all have with each other. I would really say that's what's going to happen in 2025.
I don't think I could have said it any better. I think you really hit it on the head. And, I was going to ask you your opinion on this too, but you just segued it so perfectly, right? Like, I found that this sense of community sort of has grown within our space, right? Like, I don't know if, that health and wellness ties in with this, but if it doesn't, boy, it's just a weird coincidence that people are really focused on health and wellness so much better. And as they do that, they build community around, like they reach out to people that maybe they didn't reach out to in the past to get their feedback and intake on stuff. They are more easily to compliment people where in the past maybe they didn't because they were afraid about how it would affect them, right? Like, I think the world is changing a little bit, and I hope, knock wood, for the better, where people are sort of lending that helping hand, where they're reaching out to folks. And I know within our world too, even with so-called competitors, we seem to have found a nice niche where we can work within our space and complement one another and do the best we can for each other, right? And I think what you said with the health and wellness really ties well into that. I know that you also, probably among your many, many talents, you volunteer a lot, right? And I saw something about the Paris Olympics. I saw a bunch of photos you had posted. It looked wonderful. Did you want to talk a little bit about that? What was your sort of role in that, and how was it? It looked like it was unbelievable. Tell me about that.
It was so fun. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love this subject. It was volunteering. So I purely volunteered. I had no idea what I was getting into. I just said yes. I was invited through a friend. So my friend is a DJ and she works with this team. So the official Pride House for the Olympics was on a boat, a Peniche, in the middle of Paris. And they were looking for someone to help them manage in a very bilingual international way, to help them manage all the podcasts and the filmed podcasts. We'd have like a studio and everything. Now I said to them, I'm very happy to do this, but please just bear in mind that I am not a journalist and I've never done this before. And they were like, I think we'll be fine. And I was thinking, okay, so this is going to be quite a lot of work. It's like it's 2 weeks every single day volunteering, but I haven't volunteered since Oxfam a while ago, and I'd really like to do something. And I happen to be free during those 2 weeks after Taiwan and Fam and before Burning Man in LA. So let's see what I can do. And as soon as I arrived, like there was a very good vibe with the team, but we also realized we didn't really have much of a planning, a schedule in advance. I had to fill it up with as many celebrities and athletes as I could. But from the very first interview that we did with one or two of the athletes, because we had so much fun and it was sunny and we are on like the rooftop of this boat and it's the best office I've ever had in my life. But ever since those first 2-3 interviews, the athletes and the VIPs, they started inviting their own friends. So they kind of filled up my schedule for me. And I really appreciate that because Pride House, Rosé Bonheur sur Scène, Compete Proud, everyone that we worked with, they did such a good job. So like basically the ball just started rolling. As soon as we had one interview, they invited someone else who then invited someone else. The whole, hockey team came in. We had all these gold medalists coming in. It was a really fun experience. I went to a few of the official Olympics events and parties as well, got to meet even more people. And I think what makes me really excited about the future, from the past to the future, is that Tokyo Pride was online because it was in COVID and they had like a few out athletes. This year, there were almost 200 athletes who were very proud and very out and basically just trying to encourage the community to be more out and proud. And we're obviously hoping that for LA, which is a very, very queer city, very open city, we're really hoping that this is going to be even more. Really hoping to go to LA myself and work with them. And I'm very excited to be working with the LA team. But I think the official Olympics team, the IOC, the International Olympics Committee, the fact that they recognized and officially referred to the Pride House as the official Pride House for the first time, I think that made a very big difference. And I think that 2024 in Paris, it really was the right year and the right city for that to happen. And I think it opens doors for the future because it went beyond just the community. We had everyone. We had performances, we had artists, we had allies, we had everyone, families, we had students, we had teachers, everyone came in. And because the vibe was so nice and so positive during this volunteering experience for me, I remember thinking, I think there was only one or two real like homophobic incidents. And the people who were passing by who tried to be a little bit homophobic sort of stopped because they realized everyone was looking at them like, this isn't really the place for this
Right.
behavior. And they stopped. So it was just a very, very happy place full of happy people and colorfulness. And it was so sunny and so beautiful and loved it.
It's great when you can drop all the boundaries and all the borders and just think of that happy space. And when you have the opportunity to share it with people around you too, it makes it all that much better. I hope you do take advantage of doing it in LA because I would love to come out and see you out there.
Oh no, we must. We must. It was
Yeah.
insane. You know what? From a media covered point of view, and I'm allowed to communicate this now because we had to wait a little bit. But from a media coverage point of view, what we did with the official Pride House in Paris was the equivalent of, I believe, 3 billion or something like that. The exact number I don't have, but the equivalent of 3 billion euros of press coverage had we paid for it. And so this has been calculated using AI. It's a lot. The 3 million or 3 billion? I don't want to make a mistake. I'm going to say 3 million just in case.
It's incredible.
But it was a beautiful, very SEO focused as well, because it was very much like official Pride House Olympics and so on, Pride House Paris. This really opened the doors for LA. And I know that the LA team, especially with the mayor as well, John Erickson, they were very thankful. They were very excited. And I think we're all going to be working together for the next step. So yeah, any excuse for me to come to the US, I'm in.
That's great. What's next for you, Daniella? What's happening in your world? What's next for you? What are you looking forward to? Where can we find you?
I am currently at the Three Darlings in London. They have very kindly given me their terrace, a heated terrace. I'm very, very happy. That's where I am right now. Where am I going to be next? I'm really excited for next year. I'll be launching lots of events in Paris and also hopefully in London, and also maybe one in New York with the team. I'll be supporting a team on a new art event in New York. So hopefully I'll be seeing you very soon as well. I think the best way to follow what we're working on would be either my LinkedIn or my Instagram or my website. But anyway, all three of them kind of have slightly different positioning. LinkedIn being more like client stuff and teaching, Instagram being more art and events, my website kind of being everything. So yeah, I'm very excited. Big art fairs coming up soon.
Daniella McNulty, you have been fabulous. I knew you would be. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing all your experience with us, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year.
You too. See you very, very soon. Have an amazing holiday. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm really touched.
You too. Thank you again.